This Charles Eames chair is a very good study example to explore different techniques in how we can create the metal pipes construction, as well as how maybe you want to build the bent plywood part, because essentially you want to build it in a way so that later when we have to texture it, we quite easily can generate a textured model that looks very close to reality. Okay, so let's start actually with the metal part. So I will put this onto a different layer there. Control I, M on this layer, and then all those I will put onto layer 1. Okay, so let's see how we could easily build this. So if we take a look at it, you can see that this pipe construction and this pipe construction from the side is flat, and the center construction is flat this way. So this actually already gives you an indicator to how maybe you want to build this. Okay, and again, we will at first block out the pipes without doing the physical joinery or simulating, for example, how and where parts will be welded. So step number 1 would be to figure out a good cross section for the pipes. So I will create a cylinder, and let's say this one I will call pipe cross section. Okay, and this one we can move to there. And for example, scale down, and maybe I move it to there, rotate a little bit, so when I scale it I can better see what I have. So let's take a look what we have. So 1.6 centimeters in imperial would be, yeah, kind of like 600 thousandths of an inch. Okay, so maybe I will just clean this up a little bit there. Okay, good. So let's say this is actually my pipe dummy. So let's add then a Bezier. And here again, I will switch to vector, because with the vector format, it will be easier to block everything out, because I do not have to deal with corners at the moment. So maybe till there. This maybe I will put to something like there, and then this midpoint I can adjust till I get something close. Let's say like this. Okay, good. Then AA, W, subdivide. So why did I do a subdivide? Very simple. This point I will slide down. You will see, maybe till there. And then this point I will, you see I am in normal mode, slide down till there. And this point I can delete. Then. And then this point I move out and move out. Turn this off. And then I set this one to aligned and aligned. So you see now I can actually pull out the curve a little bit better to how much maybe this piece should be arced. And then this way fine-tune maybe the position a little bit. Okay, looks like this whole part is slightly arced as well. So this one maybe should be aligned. So when I move this one, you see the other handle goes with it. There. Let's set this to 3 and move this one up a little bit. Okay, so there's a little bit of a bend in it. And maybe down here I move this one down till there. E, move this one out to there, and then this one F and aligned. See, there's a small bend actually taking place. Maybe this point should be there, so it is more centered. Okay, Good. These two curves I put onto layer 3. So when I name this one, let's say I call this one spine path, I can now take this pipe cross section and say run along this path. So I do this by clicking this path object, go to bevel and click on the circle, and there it is. Now I can go ahead and, for example, fine tune, for example, the position of those elements to have a nice good looking rounded edge. Okay, so you see, by scaling this object I can define actually the width of my pipe quite easily. And the first part nearly looks like it's done. Yeah. Okay, let's keep it at this for the moment. So let's go back to here, because now we have to take care of those parts. So what's the easiest way or the best way to build this? So there are multiple strategies how we could maybe do this. So we can start with a Bezier curve as well. Edit mode, set everything to vector, scale everything towards each other, rotate it 90 degrees, and then I will move everything maybe to there, scale it apart so that the start and end point are actually touching roughly the center of those circles there. So this has to go down till there maybe. Yeah, so there. Okay, good. Then go into edit mode, AA, W, subdivide, T, go to the toolbar and say 2 cuts. So why 2 cuts? Well, the thing is, we have 2 rounded corners here, so I will scale this out a little bit, maybe till there. And here comes the trick now. I move this one up, and then in object mode, so not edit mode, object mode, I will rotate this one till there. And then S and Y, I can scale this further out. So maybe local space there, move this one down. It has to be roughly at the center. Okay, there you see it. So I blocked out more or less the basic shapes, but now I would like to also again have control over the rounding. So AAW subdivide, actually I will do it this way, subdivide, and then U and U subdivide, but there we will do it twice. Okay, because this and this I can scale out maybe till there. And now we'll see. GG. That doesn't work with the splines. Okay. But I can actually move this one up maybe till there. And then I have to do the same to there. So because this is being eyeballed, I have to make sure that these points are really overlapping. I was actually pretty close, so zoom in a little bit. There, perfect. So, and then I can select these points, delete it, and then again select all these handles and say aligned. Turn this one off. And take a look at maybe how this looks. So maybe this I would like to move out a little bit more. So how do we now make everything perfectly the same? You see my object center is here. perfectly centered in my object. And this point is y minus 14 something, and this is 14 something. So if I move this one out a little bit, let's say till there, so let's say 16 centimeters. Okay, then I can go to there and say, well, there minus 16 centimeters. And then this arc is actually pretty good. Okay. Now I would like also for that part to have this pipe. So bevel by using this cross section there. Okay, let's take a look. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. So how do we maybe then make the back part? Let's take a look. That's a little bit smaller, so we can do this by Shift D, G and X. So we have to move this part backwards. And then let's in object mode rotate it so it is correct. There, okay. AA, S and Y, I scale the spline down. U and U, maybe S and Y, scale them towards each other a little bit. And now here comes the tricky part. This actually all has to grow down. So I will move this one down and I will move this one down. Then again, I have to make sure that ideally they are at the same height. There, points are overlapped. And then these points, by using the local space, I simply move down till they hit the right position there. And there, see, actually this is too flat. S and Y, scale this out a little bit. Maybe move it onto the third layer and third layer. Let's go to layer 3. And let's take a look. No, it doesn't look too bad. Okay. So, but let's say now we would really like to be a little bit more precise in the way how we maybe make these bends on these pipes. So very simple process. So ideally we will bend the pipe over a circular shape. So we can add maybe a Bezier circle, scale it down, RY90. And for example, here, this one I will turn off for the moment so I can see it, and then I will try to scale this one down. And then there is one midpoint, so roughly there. So G and Y move up, G and there. Okay, and from this point maybe snap to the 3D cursor. Oh, this object should snap to the cursor. Okay, now I have to move it down again. And then from the 3D cursor, you see it's on that spline or path with pivot point set to 3D cursor. I can just grow it a little bit there. Okay, so now I have roughly something that can be used as a circular profile, and then maybe see how much this one has to go in. So this is actually minus 15 centimeters, which means this point will be 15 centimeters. Okay. So this is more circular, not necessarily very nice and smooth in terms of like a G2 movement or so. Let's see what we can do with this part. We move this one up. Maybe to there. Okay, so to do this on the other side easily, we just move this one up by using the Z vector along normal orientation. So it is actually even out. Okay, good. So let's see how this maybe would work for here. So there, cursor to selected, selection to cursor, G and Z, let's move it down. And then from that cursor, let's grow it out, there. Okay, so, normal, actually this one has to maybe grow down a little bit. Oh, look, there. There it is. So this point we have to bring down. Let's go to side view again. And then zoom in a lot. So because again, you know, we're doing pipe stuff here, we can get pretty close to a millimeter. But because later we will make molds or we have shapes, we bend the pipe over. This just should look for the moment correct. Okay, good. And then those two. Let's you and give this a pipe. There. And let's take a look. Yeah, that looks not too bad. So, I can actually for the moment parent this one. So every time I do an adjustment of the radius, I have this circle with it. Now this part I might have to rotate back a little bit there, and then this one I'll rotate back to there. Okay, good. And then maybe here we can play with this a little bit and see what type of curve we would like to have there. Okay, good. So let's go to this layer and see what we have here. So there's something round, and then we have this part, and it's slightly arced. Okay, so this part probably I will not build with a pipe, but actually I will use the mesh model for it. So I set my 3D cursor, gonna get that position. Let's see, my 3D cursor should be perfectly at the world center there. Okay, and then this is round. At the end we will flatten this out. So I will make myself a circle, 8 sections, 1 centimeter R, and rotate it in edit mode. Control 4 to round it and scale it down. So it fits kind of like what they have there. What diameter we have? 1.27. What's that in imperial? Like, yeah, okay. Let's say half an inch and half an inch. Okay. Now, obviously, when you work with pipings, etc., you want to also use the dimensions of stock material you can get. So how do we do the rest now? Actually, because this is a symmetrical object, I really don't have to do both. I can simply work on 1/2. Okay, why doesn't it allow me to move this one? This is, oh, well, I actually set the scale here to 0. So Control A, scale. Now I can move this one out there. Maybe to there. Let's rotate it a little bit. and then another E to there, rotate it. Okay, so let's add a mirror modifier, move this one on top and along the y-axis. And there, you see how it grows. So, question now is, how do we get this actually into a circular shape? So I have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then something in between. So what I was counting there something. And check this one out. So I will go to the 3D cursor. This object, I will set the object origin to the 3D cursor, and then I will rotate this one flat so it's horizontal. So it will be easier for me to work with. Later I can rotate this one back up based on how much I rotated this one down. And I have to figure out how to do this now. So I will do the following. I will rotate this, maybe like this, there. And what's the easiest way now? Yeah, I will do it this way. So there, SX and 0, P to separate it so it's for the moment an object on its own. Then I will set the origin to the geometry, because now I can rotate it, go to local, position it, and I will use a similar approach I used for the other Eames chair to do the metal construction. I build first the building blocks, because in this case here, would like to be pretty precise. There, and let's see what we have. So this one has to be roughly there. Now we can grow this more. Okay, and then A, E, extrude along the local vector. There, okay. So, and now I have to figure out how can I join this one to this one. That's going to be the interesting task. So here I have 1, 2, 3. This is actually my site. And check this one out. So I see that it connects somewhere here. I will simplify this a little bit and say it connects there. Control R, make a copy, and then, oops, this is using the mirror tool, turn off, U and U. I make a copy first, join. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and bridge. The same should happen here. And bridge. Okay. Good. So then I have this one I will later feed to there. So that means this edge to this edge, fill. This edge to this edge, fill. I could loop cut this. Then this edge to this edge, F and F. And there we have it filled. So you see here we have an opening, and there I can simply select this vertex, select this vertex, W, and say merge at the last selected point. Ta-da! And then all those. We also bridge, loop cut, U and U merge at last. And then this one and this one fill and where is it? Fill there. AA, Control N, so it's all nicely adjusted correctly. So we want here again also those edges to be sharper. We can select those edges here, and for example for render purpose we say not bevel, crease there, and shade smooth, and maybe go to 3, and then we add one last one. So actually this very sharp edge, we soften a tick there. This doesn't look too bad. Okay, so now we have to rotate this one back into the correct position. So we set this one, we rotated like 10.3 degrees. So also here minus 10.3 degrees. And there we are. Okay, that was not too difficult. And let's move this one to layer 3. So there already we have most of our pipe stuff. This is a really nicely sculpted detail because this is subdivide surface modeling, and we do it with halves. We can, if for example we want to adjust maybe this detail a little bit, push these points out there, maybe push this one over a little bit. You see the transition gets a little bit bigger, but yeah, we need a hole there to cut through. I really liked how this was so flatly stamped. And maybe even here we can move these up a little bit. So you see there's a lot of possibility to make very fluid shapes and nice transitions. Okay, obviously when this is round, it's not very easy to drill and screw something through, so maybe we actually should leave it that way. Maybe this one we push in to there. We could even crease this edge, so even more forcefully we tighten it there, so we have like a surface that's perfectly flat. So we need something to screw onto. We have the flat contact surface. Okay, let's save this. Eames chair. Okay, good. Most of the stuff for the pipe, for the planning purpose, I think is currently done. So maybe we should look into how to cap these pipes, and then also how to make the gliders. So let's take a look at some reference material first. This is a rendering from one website where they have high-res images of the furniture, including screws, etc. So this seems to be pretty accurate. You can actually see also that they did not do the wood stitching in a good way. They cheated a little bit. Looks like this is done in KeyShot. I can see the KeyShot shading here. Okay, we'll do it better. Anyway, little prank. Let's take a look at the feet. You will see that the pipes are not cut to be flush with the ground, but they're kept untouched, and then we can simply put caps in it, and the gliders, they have a swivel joint. So no matter the ground, those small feet can adjust a little bit. Only up here, for example, this is capped. So for render purpose, we can, for example, select this pipe and then say, hey, you, fill cap. Oh, and maybe we just make this a tick longer, and then later we have to flush this a little bit, because in the reference, as you can see, this is slightly flush. Not flush, angled. Okay, so but now how do we do actually those gliders? So does the reference model have anything? Let's see. Now they have some basic gliders there. Okay, good. So in real life, you would have hardware. You would just find out of a catalog and then put it in. For render purpose, we can simplify the mechanics. All we need is basically maybe something that goes around the end of the pipe. And then we have also this, the glider. Okay, so let's work on these gliders for a moment. And I will only build one, and then we will position everything correctly. This is actually not too bad, but maybe too many points. So you, and go on the ground. Let's make a circle, 8 points, Control 4. In edit mode, we scale this one up a little bit. E and Z, because while this one is coned, it looked here, actually it goes up a little bit and then it slides in. So maybe a little bit like this. 2 millimeters. You see I will use the grid as a reference. Shift E and 1. E and Z, and then we can scale this one down. A little bit bigger, maybe there. E and Z, move this one up. Okay, good. AA, Control N. This one here, Shift E, 1. And then we can press E and S to scale it inwards, and we can leave it open. Not a big deal. Nobody will see that from below. And let's move this one to the layer where we have our pipes. Okay, so the tricky thing is now to position all those feet so they are perfectly flush with our, how could I say that, pipes. So the center should be at the center of this ring. So how do we do this? Well, we can simply say Shift S, cursor to selected, and then selection to cursor, and then we simply move it down to the ground plane again. And then this should be pretty much at the center. Let's Alt D, make a copy, because we have to do the same to the back leg as well. Cursor to selected, selection to cursor, and then just move it back down onto the ground. Okay, so now those are at least correctly under the pipe. And that helps us a little bit to maybe say, how far do we have to scale this one down? This feels a little bit too big, so bounding box S, Shift Z, scale this down a little bit. And maybe this one we just make a little bit taller. And then let's rotate around just to make sure it doesn't stick out somewhere. Okay, good. So essentially, again, there would be an insert that goes in there, and this would have some sort of a swivel joint or something. So we need to have something here at the end. And what would be the best way to do this? So this might actually work. We will copy actually this rotation value and reset this for the moment to 0. And then cursor to selected. Let's make another circle, Control 4. Project this one onto, scale this one down so it's kind of flush. Where did it go to? Oh, you went to there. Oh, yeah, made sense. Cursor to selected, you should be there. Okay, and then in this view, now I can rotate it and line it up. Okay. So they have, this has to be scaled a little bit more, maybe a little bit more, rotated. Okay, good. So what's this one for? Now I can, for example, say, go to local, E, escape, and then move this one along local space down. Select this one, E, escape, S, so I scale it in a little bit, E, escape, move it up. And then here, E, escape, scale inwards a little bit, E, escape, maybe go to there. One more, just to be sure. The camera will never later be able to see it. And you see I quickly created something that can stick inside that pipe. So let's shade it. Okay. And then now I can actually parent this one to the pipe. And simply when I rotate this one back, you see the part will rotate with it. Perfect. Let's shade this one, and I will actually sub-D model these edges here. I don't want this to be so super creased, and I don't want to have to add an additional loop cut later, and not loop cut, and another sub-D to round it. Oh no, what? Actually, just leave it this way. In this case, no. I will afterwards add the bevel modifier because I do not have any Boolean commands. Angle. And let's see if this actually works. Should be able to move this one up. Hold on. So maybe 1 millimeter. Is this still too big? Oh yeah, well the whole piece is just only 2 millimeters big. So this can only be maybe that wide there. Okay. There. So you see the sub-D modifier creates that extra geometry for me, and then the bevel modifier rounds actually everything for me. There, one more. Shade smooth. Yeah, okay. And then after this I add another sub-D, so I round everything one more time. The main reason why I did this is a small workaround. You see, when this gets too big, you see here where my sub-D levels are, so you can see that. And my bevel modifier gets close to this line and there. If I add this third one, yeah, I see this artifact there. And this is simply because the geometry the bevel command creates will overlap with the geometry the sub-D modifier creates, which is why afterwards I simply add one more rounding. In Fusion, this one we wouldn't need. This is just a visual hack because we work with polygons here right now. Okay, so this is done. U to U, Control L, copy the modifier. And then we can also, in this scene as well, cursor to selected, no, cursor to grid, center, sorry. And let's add a simple arrow. This is again share parent empty, and maybe 20 centimeters. And then this one and this one. I don't know if we can, with pressing Alt add a mirror modifier to both, and then while pressing Alt, no, only works with one. No, it's okay, not a big deal. So mirror modifier Y to there. Okay, perfect. Same for here. This one gets a mirror modifier. The share parent. Okay. Now this element here I have to bring back also to there. So Alt D, Alt P, and say clear parent, and then there let's set this to 0, cursor to selected, selection to cursor. Let's take a look how far this matches. Probably not perfectly, as expected. Not a big deal. Now we can just, from this view, rotate it. Yeah. And then say U to U, Control P, parent, and then this object we rotate back, and there it is. And now I feel like this element we created is way too small, so I will select this ring in local space, move it down a little bit more. What I have here inside, S and Shift Z and Shift Z, so scale along local space excluding the Z-axis. Okay, this is good. This actually has to be a little bit smaller. S and Shift Z and Shift Z. And maybe all this I could select and then Shift E and 1. Let's see how this fits. Yeah. U and U, local space a tick down. So I will put in a small noticeable gap. This is set to 3. Let's add 1 sub-D afterwards. So this is pretty dense, but it's a simple mesh, not a big deal. We just round it this way to make it visually look more accurate. And then this one here, 2, 2, and 2, 2 there. Perfect. There we are. Now we have the gliders, including those elements here put in. And I think so far we're pretty good with the pipe stuff. So maybe now let's take a look at the wood part. So there are multiple ways, obviously, how we can build something. There are always good and efficient and not so efficient ways. And let's, for the moment, do one last double check. Yeah, okay, good. So maybe let's work with the seat part first. So it bends down here and then it dips down in the center and the corners are a little bit rounded. And we can model it that way, obviously, but then we will have a hard time later to texture it. And it's easier to create everything so it's nice and flat, so we can easily unwrap it and texture it correctly. And then certain parts like this, we simply bend by hand. Okay, so that's actually what we will do. So let's take a look. Let's maybe start there, cursor to selected, kind of like the height. This all should be cleaned up a little bit. Okay. And then let's add a plane. Maybe move this plane to there. Yeah, I will grow it to the top. And then in edit mode, we scale it down. And there. This one maybe goes along the x-axis till there. I think that's then where it will bend down. Okay. And there. E and X. There. We need one loop cut here. Loop cut and then loop cut and loop cut. Actually, For the moment, this we can remove because we can't replace this with a mirror modifier. Okay. So then let's add a subdivision surface modifier. And then we can see how far this maybe fits. So go in, go out, maybe a loop cut here in between. Okay, so there we don't do it yet because we have to bend this piece down first. So no, you know what? Actually, I will move this one up. I will work from the top part. Okay, so, and then cursor to this part in object mode, Shift Control Alt, and origin to 3D cursor. And then there we, for example, can add a Bezier curve. And then AA, F, and vector. This one goes to the selection to cursor. So you see now the Bezier has the origin there and starts there. And my shell has its origin and starts there. And my shell grows towards the X. My Bezier grows towards the X direction, which is why I can now and say curve modifier to the shell along the X direction by using this spline. So this one we can move back to there. And then move this one to there. So, and then this point, we will say aligned. And this point, we will bend out, turn the normals off, and just push this one out. So you see, this is actually a much quicker way to do it, because I always work with a flat piece and the curve takes care of the deformation for me. So few nice tricks. I can turn this one on, and then when I go into with this turned on edit mode as well, you will see that the mesh is now projected like it is bent. And this helps me because now I can in edit mode select these points and then move it along the x-axis, and you will see it will continue growing down along the bent curve, because I only moved this one out and then but I projected bent already. So this was very easy to sculpt this. Dang, done. So the next step I have to do is to take care of how this, for example, dips down. So maybe, let's see, I work from there, and then maybe there. Yeah, okay. Let's do a cross-section look, just those points. Okay, I'm actually not too far off, so maybe those down a little bit. Maybe only along the spine. Yeah, I mean, this computer model from the Herman Miller website is very blocky, so we can only use this as a rough idea. But I would say this is pretty close. Okay, good. Shade smooth. And then after we bend it, we can add a solidify modifier. Let's say 1 centimeter looks actually pretty close. Yeah. Yeah, okay. And then maybe one extra there, and then one last. So I also round these edges maybe a little bit. Oh, hold on. That's kind of silly because that's been plywood. We will have sharper edges there. Okay. Good. See, again, the nice thing is we will have a very flat object and then we can turn this into a thick part, bend it, and even preview it. Okay, so zip, 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 and there. Okay, so that was number one. How does this bend look? It also looks pretty nice and good. Perfect. So let's take a look at maybe the backrest. That one is also interesting because, as you can see, it bends this way, and then also there it seems to bend a little bit that way. I don't know if that's actually true, so let me double check something first. So as it seems, there is indeed a small arc. It's not very strong. Bend plywood, you can't really bend along two directions aggressively, otherwise it just would break. That's the reason why this bends down kind of like this way, and this one dips down along, well, this direction. So the backrest bends nicely around your back, which means along this direction I can only bend a tiny bit. Okay, so let's maybe take a look at the top and then see what could be good strategies to build this. So first, let's add a plane there. Let's maybe move this plane up. Double check that along the y-axis it is at 0, ry and 90. And whoa, let's move this one up. A. Scale it out. There. Okay, so before I continue, now I should actually maybe bring this one to the correct rotation. And let me try to see that it sits perfectly on the outside or inside. R and Y. R, Y, yeah. Okay, maybe like this. Good. So, at least AAW subdivide, loop cut horizontal and vertical. I need at least one there, one there, one there. And also all this sayonara. And bring it over. Then Control 4, we have added the loop cuts, the Subdivision Surface modifier. So how do we bend this now? So it grows from here, and now we could go and use the simple deform. Let's see if that actually works. So this part is rotated and it seems to be cranky. It's not the rotation the way how I want. If we set this to 0, it bends that way, really? Yeah, okay. Edit mode there. Here. Cursor to selected. And this is a little bit annoying and not really well explained through the interface. The simple deform really works very strictly along X, Y, and Z in local space. So you see now this bends along, yeah, Y and X in a certain way. So I need to have my mesh built this way so I can bend it. And now I can actually go back and bring it to there. So minus 90 or 90, bring it over there. And then I can de-stress it a little bit. Okay. I hope this made sense a little bit. It's a limitation inside the way how the bend command is set up. Unfortunately, I don't expose how to use it a little bit better through the interface, but if you follow simply this rule that build it left and right along the x-axis, then everything will work perfectly and you're good. Maybe this bring in a little bit there. And also after this we could add the solidify modifier 1 centimeter but the other direction. Okay, close. So maybe some more rotation, this one in a little bit there, and then we can just G and X along local space, move it back. Okay. Bent plywood, because it is a composite material, that means we have multiple layers glued together and each layer is 90-degree rotated in an alternating way, can efficiently be bent only along one direction before the piece would, for example, break or shear. If you take a look at the chair, you see the front part only bends down, then this is actually flat, and then the center part bends down along a different direction. But the whole part is rather flat and doesn't bend aggressively. The backrest bends along our back, but then has a very slight curve. So that's possible when it's just minimal. The more we would bend this one, at one point the material would simply break. So we can do this the best way with using a bend curve command. So the simple deform simply takes care of this nice bend, and then we will add a cross-section bend. We will select this last point and then Shift S cursor to select it in edit mode, and then in object mode we will add a Bezier curve. Set everything to vector. The last point we snap to the cursor, and then in object mode I rotate the spline so that the local x-axis, as you can see now, grows along the backrest, because that will be the direction we will bend. So again, this is very important that in object mode we rotate it and not in edit mode. Then I can select these 2 points, slightly move it out. Okay, maybe a little bit more. And then select my backrest. Add a curve modifier for deformation, select the spline, and there we are. Perfect. Now you see just a small bend applied. Maybe let's do this a tick bigger. Yeah, like this. Okay. And again, the beauty is this is nicely deformed, and when we would go into edit mode it is all flat, so later for texturing this will be a fantastic geometry to work with. And actually right now I'm just curious if maybe we could add a tiny bevel command to round these edges along sharp corners, maybe 10. Yeah, there, perfect. Okay, good. So then let's move all this onto a different layer. Height M and 3. Where's that other SketchUp model there? And U and 3. Okay, so everything is separated. I want to do the same here as well with the bevel command. So 0.25 millimeters. Ooh. So it's just tiny and along only sharp edges. Let's see if this works everywhere. Yeah, looks so. Okay, what about 1 mm? Yeah, works as well. Okay, good. So now we have, what did we do? We finished the wood, we finished the metal parts, we have the gliders. This isn't finished yet, or later we can trim it. We might have to work on some of those silicone pads or plastic pads. Actually, the wood parts will be attached to, and then the rest will be attached to the metal frame. Okay, so let's take a look what we have. There are some very simple pads. AA, cursor to selected. Let's see, that should be roughly the size. Okay. Yeah, we will do it this way. U and U. And U. Shift H, hide everything else. Also H, U. And, so U to U, parent. Whoops, interesting. Control P, clear parent. Control P, there, Alt P, I need. This was parented to something before, I think, which is why it flipped out so interestingly. So let's do this one more time. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, this is a parent. So Alt P, clear and keep transformation. So I can now parent it to a new object, because this one we will set to 0 rotation. So again, it's easier to work with. And there we see that this is not 100% correct. There. Maybe a piece should be roughly there. Okay, good. So we can use this again as a dummy object to create our own geometry. And then RX90, rotate it over. And then let's grow this there and there. Yeah, this looks good. So U and U, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then in object mode reset the cursor point. Bye bye. This actually looks pretty nice now. This we will parent to this object, and now then we can just rotate it back. Dang. So let's see, let's shade this one first. Smooth. And maybe add this a bevel command. Something breaks here. I see why this was too big. So the vertices were self-intersecting. Okay, then in this case, we can simply do it this way. We add a second subd afterwards to round it. Yeah, okay, good. Because we don't really cut everything away from it, we just need a nice round discs. But there's one thing I have to fix. If you take a look at it, you see this is pinching a little bit, and that's because here are the points, here's an edge. So in edit mode, I might have to select these two front faces, press I, and then create an insert face, so an additional yeah, ring, Shift E -1. Don't make it so sharp anymore. There. Now this looks better. Oh yeah, there. Got this is a plastic disc. We don't need super sharp edges. Okay, so this needs to be mirrored. So mirror modifier along the X direction. Now we can use this handle here. Oh. Circle. This is interesting. Oh, wah, wah. Wrong axis. There. Alt H to see how does this actually fit with the rest here. And let's maybe make a cut section view so it grows a little bit too far in. So we could do in that case, we simply select this loop and then bring it in a little bit. Yeah. Okay, now it won't be really 100% flush because, well, this is a bent surface, so this is okay. Good. Now let's take a look at those pads. Ideally, everything should be exactly the same part, so these two, Shift H, let's go to here, height and height, U, we say Alt D, move over to there, Alt P, clear transformation and parenting, 0, 0, 0, and move down to here. Maybe to there. Okay. And then 3. Wait. We have to center it correctly. There. And the mirror command from the handle still takes care of it. So all good. Could also maybe, to be safer, simply say mirror along this one. There. Okay. Let's take a look at what happens when we show our wood parts. And we can see that a little bit too short. So there's actually also our pipe stuff. So this has to go a little bit higher, and then it touches already also the shell, I think, at least there. So we'll be okay. When this is deformable plastic and we put all this stuff later together, material will bend and compress a little bit. So that's a very tricky thing to simulate inside a CAD application. So we can simply put parts in maybe the way where they would be and call it good. Okay, last piece. The part down here. Let's take a look. So there is something there and a big screw comes through. Okay. So this is actually then not correct. Alt D, rotate it. But this is actually is it a thicker part? No, that's actually looks like thickness-wise the same. But as it seems, the shell here has a small geometry added to it. So now it's a question how we want to solve this problem. Yeah, that's now a tricky question. Let's do it this way. This part here, maybe we make it a little bit thicker. Unfortunately, I don't show the lower parts there. Yeah, okay. We could make a clone of it and then add more more material thickness to it. Could also simply leave it there, maybe there. So this one will go. And then this has to be y at 0 and no mirror. Okay, yeah. There will be some screws or something. Now that this technical part really only makes sense to put data in when you maybe see it, or now of course when you also want to prototype it. For conceptual thinking phase, maybe this currently for the moment the way how it is can be sufficient. So let me Google something. I want to go maybe for a different view. Herman Miller Eames dining chair there. And images. Curious if I can see somewhere else maybe a different view of that construction. So this is actually pretty flat, so it looks like the wood part comes down a little bit more. We also see that these plastic parts are actually pretty thick, so in my case I can increase the distance between the metal part and the wood shell. Yeah. Okay, so this is actually rather parallel to it. Perfect. Okay, so good. Maybe let's bring this one down to there, and then we add this a little bit. So obviously everything else got adjusted equally. So now I will do the following. So we move this one maybe to there. Okay. So, and then we have to maybe play with the pipe construction here a little bit. So maybe this can go up a little bit more. What happens if maybe we bend this? That is not a good idea because that would mean an additional step to do. But maybe that's simply somewhat necessary there. I see, I'm getting closer. Okay, so let's go back to the second there. So it's more or less touching, which means all those here can simply move up a notch there. Or you know what? Just bring this part down a little bit. There. So the front part, I don't really have good reference information about how these metal parts at the end are put together. So maybe let's assume this. So copy and the 0. Oh wait, no. What? This actually moves down a little bit more because this has to go to there, plus minus, and I know where this pipe here has to end, so maybe there. Okay, so now this part, all this doesn't match anymore, so I can rotate this back to 0, turn this off for the moment, and simply correct this. So this goes down and a little bit to there. And then this point along normal has to go down. There we are back. And then this I can rotate back and pipe cross section. Give it the pipe back. Okay. Yeah. Oh, this looks a little bit better. Okay. That actually, I would say, is pretty much done. The only detail maybe later to fine-tune is to cut this part out. There are also some screws. Maybe let's do the screws for the moment so we can nicely finish the model. So screws are pretty simple. Obviously you will select something that's pre-made, but always for computer presentation stuff, it is nice to have actual realistic looking elements in there. And let's take a look what they have inside the photos. So small screws there, yeah. Okay, so how can we build the screw easily? I will import obj my quad ball there. Whoop, and scale this piece down. Whoops. There. Control 3. Now obviously this is way too big, so maybe the screw looked like something like this. Okay, good. So yeah, so what I will do now is the following. All this maybe I will delete there. This one, E, move down. All this actually compress a little bit more because the screw is a little bit flatter. And then here, E and Z, we move this one in. We can call it good. And actually at this loop cut there, we set the 3D cursor, and then in object mode, set the pivot point to there. But now we don't have those cuts in there. Not a big deal. We can add a plane there, and then Control R and Control R. Select these two lines, Control B, so we bevel it. And there's our plus, and then all this we can select and delete. Okay, move this one up, extrude this one into it, Control N, so it is good. And then we can add a modifier boolean difference and cut this out. And then this we say wire, zip, 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 zip. Okay, there we have it. Very simple screw model. This boolean part I will parent to the head, so when I move the head, the rest goes with it. Sometimes ignore the interesting update flaws. It will be fixed in rendering. Maybe here, let's sharpen this. And the last step now would be to get this to the correct position. So let's say here I would like to have the screw hole. So this part, selection to the cursor. And then there as well, to make it easier. Oh, how much was it? Minus 10.3. So let's set this to 0. Cursor to selected, selection to cursor, RY minus 90, and then I have to, in top view, rotate this correctly. There. Okay. Is this parented? Not yet. And I'm parent to this part. And please also, yeah, mirror where you're there. Along this one, y-axis, perfect. And you see this Boolean command result we also mirror over. Pretty nice. Good. Then we can rotate this one back. And now we have also screws. That's a really nice detail that always gives things the look as being more finished. So this stuff here, I will Alt D, move to somewhere else. I Alt P, yep, clear that, and then I will go to this view and rotate it. Hold on, I set everything to 0. Oh, not for this part. This part, I set everything to 0. Oh, hold on. My fault. So this one still has to be parented to this part. So this object, okay, 90. No, actually minus 90, because it has to look down. Because we will move this one to there. You see the mirror command is on the right side already. So cursor to selected, and then selection to cursor, and then bring it down. But this is probably not 100% correct. So this should rather be here, and then this one should rather be there, because that would be more the drilling through the pipe. Yeah, so there maybe. Okay, you know what we will do in this case here, S, E, 1 up, E, and a bigger 1 up. So it looks like there's an actual screw really present. There. Okay, and the last piece then would be Alt D again, and cursor to selected, selection to cursor, then we rotate it accordingly there, and then local space. Move this one down till it exits the pipe. There. Okay, and that's it. Finito.